Hi, everyone. Before the episode begins, I just want to remind you to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Marlene the Plant Lady and YouTube, Everything Gardening with Marlene Simon. And remember, please, please, please rate and review on iTunes and Spotify. That just helps the podcast get noticed by more people, and then more people will become better gardeners. And that's what we all want. So enjoy the episode.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene, and tonight we're going to talk about bulbs. Everything about bulbs, when to plant bulbs, how to plant bulbs, why you should plant bulbs. And we're actually going to, of course, we're going to talk about how to take care of them, grow them, but we're going to talk about something called bulb lawn. So, we're in a drought in the West and people are encouraged to get rid of their lawns. And with me is Peggy Anne Montgomery, and she just informed me that they've been doing this in the Netherlands since the 1600s. And I'm like, wow, that's a fascinating idea. Well, it's not a new idea, maybe for some of us, but thank you, Peggy Ann, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's always wonderful to have a chance to talk about bulbs and the folks I represent at flowerbulbs.com.
All right. So you have an interesting most plant people have a very interesting background, or maybe just people in general. And I just talk to plant people, so it seems like they have interesting backgrounds. But I was reading, your just bio really quick, and you sort of, I'm sort of jealous because you have a nice merger of business and plants, which I'm always sort of jealous of because ask my husband, I'm a horrible business person. But you also lived overseas. So just explain about how you started gardening and how you ended up where you're at today.
My mom was a great gardener, and so was my grandpa.
Mm.
And so I was exposed to gardening from a very young age. As a tiny child, I can remember being with my mom in the garden, and she would make snapdragons talk, and I thought she was magical. Um, and then I went on to university at the University of Minnesota, and I chose a very different subject. But as luck would have it, I moved to the Netherlands, and at the time, not all of my university credits transferred and everything, and they needed horticulturists. And so after I had spent some time learning Dutch and got kind of the equivalent of a green card, I started studying horticulture there, and so they paid me a stipend to live on, and I studied horticulture and apprenticed for 4 years, and it was just magical.
I've never heard a place needing horticulturalists. That's so not the U.S.
I know, but that's something that they treasured there. They always have, like much like the history in England. And at the time, even for the city where I started apprenticing, in a modest-sized city of Leeuwarden, there were 80 full-time gardeners.
Wow. And were you working in the bulb industry, or was this an estate garden? Or
No, I started. When you go to school there, you also need to apprentice, and they like you to apprentice in lots of different kinds of places so that you get a very good taste of it. So during my time there, I apprenticed working for the city. I was an arborist. I managed a rose growing company. I did maintenance and installation. So just a real wide variety of things. They like you to finish up your study with a really rounded background.
yeah, I always tell students that my internships and my work experience was so much more fundamental in me learning than my degree.
It's absolutely true. It's one thing to be able to draw a beautiful landscape design, but it's another to know that it's going to be successful and it's going to work.
Mhm.
And you have to. I think you kind of have to have that hands-on to really understand. No garden design will be beautiful if you can't maintain it.
Exactly. So then you moved back to the US, and did you stay in the horticulture field?
I did. I lived in the Netherlands for 15 years and I raised my four beautiful stepchildren. And, so it's very much home to me. But then my mother became very ill. And so I moved back to the States, to Minnesota, where I'm from. And I asked around, and everybody's, like, where's the best place to work? And everybody said Bailey Nurseries. It's a big family owned, it's been owned by the family for over 100 years,
Mm.
big wholesale nursery that's headquartered in the Twin Cities. So I got a job there and it was great. And I did, I ran the annual and perennial sales. I did marketing and all kinds of other things. And it was a wonderful place to work. I was there for 10 years. I'm still very close to the family, and it allowed me to, um, be a garden writer, part of the Garden Writers Association. So I was fortunate to travel all over this beautiful country and see the best, private and public gardens everywhere. So it was really fortunate.
Yeah, that would be fun. I would love to
It was.
go visit and just be nosy in people's gardens.
Well, every year the Garden Writers Association, which is called Garden Com now, has a national convention in a different city. And so every year we went to another place and saw, all of the state had to offer, and, and also toured private gardens. So we're really fortunate that way. I've always written for gardening magazines.
Oh, yeah, I'm a member. I just
Great.
never get to go and um yeah, every time it comes up, I'm always like, oh, oh, I'm busy then. But I know it would be fun to just go and join these and then hang out with other garden writers and people who are obsessed
It's
with
really
gardening.
neat. I think I've been a member for, 20, over 20 years, I guess.
Oh, wow.
And my husband, where I met my husband actually, and he's a horticulturist. And we were both made fellows in the same year. That was very
Oh,
sweet.
oh, that is sweet. So you now work for Garden Media.
Yep, I work for
Yes.
the Garden Media Group. We're
Okay.
a small boutique
Hmm.
public relations firm, and we just handle clients in the horticultural industry.
Okay. And but you would you say you specialize in bulbs? Is that just one of the areas, or do you have a particular love of bulbs? I figured it was because you were you knew you were in the Netherlands, and it's just you're
You know what? As a horticulturist, I have a kind of a wide range of
yeah.
things I can speak to in our
Uh-huh.
company. But I am fortunate enough to get to work with Dutch Royal Anthos, and that's a consortium of Dutch bulb growers and exporters, and people in this country that grow cut flowers from bulbs like lilies and tulips.
Mm.
And I've been working. They're my only client in our business, and I've gotten to work with them for 4 years now, and it's like the perfect job in the world for me. So I get to work with everybody from Holland, and I speak Dutch, so they kind of count
Perfect.
me as Dutch anyway. And I've always loved bulbs. Here in my garden in Delaware, we have thousands and thousands. Certainly in my home
Oh.
in Holland, we did. It's just something I love so much. And they're always like kind of a surprise. And I think the first flowers of spring are so precious.
Mhm.
Um, so this is a real labor of love. I feel like I get to bat for the home team working with these folks. And it's just an absolute delight, to get to and we're not really even driving sales. My mandate is to inspire and educate.
Oh.
And that's a pretty great space to be in. And sharing news about something you love isn't really work.
Yeah. No, that would be me. I'd be like, I may not be able to purposely sell, but I could really be excited about this product because I believe in it,
Yes.
so then hopefully the sales just follow. Well, let's let's do a little bit of background on a bulb because we use the term bulb as sort of a generic term. And then other
Hmm.
people may hear something like a corm or a tuber or
Yep.
rhizome. Can you sort of break down what the purpose of all those I mean they're all storage units. Can you sort of
Yep.
break down just real quick the difference between them? We don't need to get so scientific, but I think people, would benefit from knowing the difference.
I love I've never heard this expression that you just used, and I love it, a storage unit, because that's exactly what they are. And so we use the term bulbs to refer to all of these different things. And corums, when you buy them, you'll see they're kind of small and flat and hard, and you don't know which way is up. And tubers, like dahlias, are bigger and they're fleshy. But we kind of use the term bulbs to talk about all of these different storage units, which I'm going to start saying all the time now. Um, and so I don't think, for lay people, I don't think you really have to get into that too much.
Hmm.
Just know that these are things that are going to be planted, and these storage units, the bulb or the corm or the rhizome or whatever it is going to need to also be refed by letting the foliage die back. And so it's going to use all the stores it has to produce those beautiful flowers. And then when the flowers start to fade and the leaves start to turn yellow, all of that energy is going back into the storage unit to provide flowers for the next year.
Yeah, people really want to remove yellowing foliage.
I
And
know.
it's,
But you know what? Nobody's always pretty. And we've got to just kind of put up with these
yeah.
things in the garden
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah, I always tell people,
you
I'm
know?
like, now, do you look perfect? Your plant's not going to look perfect all the time. But I think once people learn this is really what's happening, and they can
Yeah,
understand and be like, okay. Because if you think about, okay, it's just all going back into there for next year.
it is. And, um, I think it's also important to remember. Well, actually, there's some new studies from Cornell that are telling us that we can cut them back a little earlier than we previously thought. But if you can, I think it's a good idea to try and leave them. So if that really bothers you, there's some tricks you can do. So you could plant them together with, like, say, perennials
Hmm.
whose foliage is going to come up and start to grow and cover that foliage of the bulbs that's dying back. Um, I know planting daffodils with daylilies is kind of one way to hide them, or with hostas even, because the hosta foliage will come up and cover it.
Mm.
Or another way is in a deciduous shrub border to go ahead and plant bulbs for naturalizing all along in front. As that foliage goes down, the shrubs will leaf out in the spring, and that will help cover it up too. And let's just try to be a little bit patient, because very often with all kinds of plants in the garden, we need them to go to seed so that they can produce more flowers or all kinds of things. And if you can do it, try to just think along the lines of mother nature, and just being a little bit patient.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people who are gardening tend to be, which I'm always surprised I'm a gardener because I'm a very impatient person. But when it comes to gardening, for some reason, I'm patient. But I think it's also just enjoy the whole entire process, and
Yeah,
because by the time the foliage is dying down, then spring is really kicked in. So other things are starting to
right.
bloom. Like you said, if you plant other things with them, those plants are going to take over. Let's go and talk about why the two main times to plant bulbs, and now fall being one of them, and sort of um, what are the steps that you do when you plant a bulb, and then I want to actually go into this bulb lawn idea, but
Okay. Yeah, so I think we can confuse people sometimes, because you plant spring flowering bulbs in the fall and summer flowering bulbs in the spring. It sounds kind of
yeah.
tricky, but it isn't really. And I really think people do associate it more with fall, because we think about tulips and we think about daffodils, and those are very recognizable flowers that people know and kind of associate with the Netherlands sometimes. And so they kind of got that, a little bit, that it's time to plant in the fall. And this is not instant gratification. We're going to put these in the ground, and we're going to have to wait several months before they come up. But, I'm getting older, and my short term memory is slipping. So to me, it's always just like this huge surprise in the spring when they come up. Um, so I love bulbs because they're kind of a surprise. And so we're talking, of course, about tulips and daffodils, but there's so many other spring bulbs to use. And then again in the spring, it's time to plant summer flowering bulbs. And there are so many kinds of summering bulbs that really can enhance our gardens all summer long. Lilies, for instance, I'm crazy about lilies. Don't even ask me how many different species I have because it's embarrassing.
Oh,
But I can't get enough of them. They're
they're
gorgeous. They're
beautiful.
elegant. They smell divine. They're a great cut flower. People love dahlias. I mean, they're
Hmm.
amazing. And this time of year, I mean, they're a showstopper, late in the season when many other things have kind of, petered out, they're still going strong. So, bulbs, in most bulbs, not all bulbs, but most bulbs also propagate themselves fairly quickly. And so you'll just always be getting more.
Yeah. And the term for that is sort of naturalizing. And I think most people think of like the daffodil because we have a daffodil hill close by.
Hmm.
Probably a lot of places have like an area where they go to where the daffodils are. And so they just sort of multiply. Whereas tulips, um, unless I'm
They don't
wrong, they
always.
don't always, right? Yeah.
Right. So if you want to, I like to think of tulips as annuals. When you think about all the annuals you buy, in the springtime for your garden and think about the price of tulips, it's okay to use them as annuals. And in fact, I load up my vegetable garden, which is now empty except for garlic until next spring. And so I have cut flowers in the springtime to share with my family and friends and Easter and things like that. So it's okay to use bulbs as annuals. Botanic tulips, I think they also call them dwarf tulips here
Hmm.
often, are tulips that do really come back year after year. And there are some other varieties if you want to kind of get into it, but many of the big tulips we think of, they might come back the next year. They won't certainly if you cut them because there's nothing to go back down in the bulb if you're going to use them for cut flowers. So I would say use them as annuals, and remember, it's okay to plant them as annuals and not have them come back every
Hmm.
year.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was talking to Andrew Bunting of the Pennsylvania Horticulture Society,
He's
and
one of our best
is
friends.
he really?
Yeah.
I'm speaking to him next week on magnolias, but we were talking about
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
because
he's a crazy magnolia
yeah.
guy. Yes, I love him. I also saw that you had my other friend Joe Lample on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Joe, he was great. He was so nice to be on. But everyone's so nice. Everyone is so in the plant world is so nice. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I start
Joe,
worrying about
you would be hard to find a
uh,
nicer guy than Joe Lample,
yes,
and you will love Andrew.
yeah. So but I was surprised when so I'm in zone 9 in California. So
Uh-huh.
um we always knew that tulips needed to be chilled before we even put them in the ground because we don't
Hmm.
have enough time. And I always assumed it was just in California where they didn't come up. And he's like, oh no, we treat them like annuals and they don't really readily come back on
Yeah.
their own. So I was surprised. And then, you just not that I didn't believe him, but you just sort of solidified that I guess I don't have to be so jealous. Another reason why I'm like, I'm like, okay, living on the West Coast.
I know, as gardeners, we always want exactly what we can't have.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
so, you are in a really unique area. So, a lot of the country, and let's like talk about, zone 3 to 8, they're not going to have any troubles with bulbs at all. But getting down into your area, you have such a unique, ecosystem. A lot of bulbs that do well for you actually come from South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And they're species that are much more rare, more difficult to find. I was
We
just talking to Nan Sturman about that.
We have all of so I work at the UC Davis Botanical Conservatory,
Uh-huh.
and we have a nice collection of South African bulbs and some of our oxalis. And people hear oxalis and they're like, "Oh, that's a huge weed." No, some of the South African oxalis is gorgeous. Um,
Gorgeous.
and so a lot of our South African bulbs are just sprouting right now, and then they'll start blooming anywhere from November through. And I will just say they are some of the most showy flowers I have ever seen.
Oh, you
It's
are so lucky. I have some Scilla peruviana
oh
tucked in my gravel garden against the wall. And after 3 years, they finally bloomed. And it
oh.
was like, oh my God.
See, we ripped that one out. We're like, oh.
Oh my gosh.
There's one that's Romulea, and then, in some of the it's just the pictures, they're just they're very short blooming, and that's the thing is they
They
have to be
are.
so showy, and, just like cacti flowers, it's like you gotta
Yeah.
put all your bang into one or few flowers. They're just so showy, but we do get to grow them, and then when they go dormant in the summer, we just put them away where they don't get any water, and they come back for,
Yeah.
so yeah, there's sort of that in between, whereas it's, but yeah, most parts of the country can't grow those, or if they do, they're very, a greenhouse and very specialized.
Yeah.
Um, so I always forget about them when I'm talking to gardeners because we don't put a lot of them in the ground because they'll just rot out in the summer when we have summer irrigation.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. It's the South African bulbs, and some of them are okay in the ground. Some of them are okay.
Hmm.
But yeah, so let's go through and let's just we might as well start talking about what a bulb lawn is, and then we'll talk about how to plant your bulbs and what your tricks are as we're talking about that. But what is your definition of a bulb lawn? And you said it's in the Netherlands, they've been doing this since the 1600s, and it makes so much sense. Um,
Yeah, it is. So there's another word for this in the Netherlands, and they're called Stinzen gardens, Stinzen, Stinzen
okay.
gardens. And Stinzen is an Frisian word. Friesland is in the northern part of Holland for like a home or a small castle that's built from stone. Obviously,
Mm.
if you could build from stone in the 1600s, you were very wealthy. And imagine, in the mid 1600s, all of the plant hunters are coming back from the east with all of these new bulbs, and it was kind of a status symbol to plant these out, in the lawn in front of your home, in big numbers. And of course, lawns back then were quite sparse. So they planted all these bulbs, and then over the years, of course, they have just multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. And many of the original Stinsa gardens are still there in Friesland and in other parts of the Netherlands. And so after, multiplying for 400 years,
Oh.
it just looks like it snowed pastel colors. It's incredible.
Oh.
And these are gardens that also flowered in succession. So there would be, think about like the snowdrops in the winter
Mhm.
aconites coming up first and going through the daffodils and scilla and kynodoxa, and then, muscari and botanical tulips and, going on to fritillari and other things. So they flower for many, many weeks. And so this idea of Stinsa gardens isn't new. And I think in England, I think they call them bulb meadows.
Mhm.
And I think in a lot of botanic gardens across the United States, they have bulb lawns. Maybe they don't call it a bulb
Yeah.
lawn like you have the Daffodil Hill.
Mhm.
Longwood Gardens has a crocus lawn in the springtime, and Winterthur Gardens has the March Bank, which is all done in very early blue colored flowers, kind of dachshund, scilla, and crocus, and other things. So they're kind of around. So this isn't a new idea. I wish I made it up, but I didn't. Um,
Yeah.
and so I love this idea, and so did the folks I work with. Obviously, this is a part of their history, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to introduce this idea here? And so last year we worked with a marvelous lady named Summer Rain Oaks,
Mhm.
and she has a place up in the Finger Lakes. So we put in the first I know of Stinsa garden, and we planted 70,000 bulbs last fall in her garden, and another 11,000 this fall. And it's just marvelous. And then another wonderful woman I work with, from Rochelle from Pith and Vigor, we did a smaller one in her yard. She had this like big old apple tree in her front yard, so the grass was kind of sparse under it anyway. And she put in, I don't know, 5 or 7,000 bulbs under that, and she has just fallen in love with this process because it's such a magical thing to see in the springtime. So now she's doing it all over the place. So it's really fun. I think it's the other thing too is, during COVID they said we got 18 million new gardeners,
Mhm.
and I really hope we can keep some. And the reason I want to talk about naturalizing and bulb lawns is because I think all of the new gardeners out there are going to be successful doing this.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing with bulbs is they are, like you said, you're almost surprised sometimes when they come up because you plant them and you sort of forget about them, and then if they naturalize, it's almost like, "Wow, look at the great gardener I am. Look at this." And
Exactly.
it's very rewarding.
It is. It's very rewarding. And so in a bulb lawn, I think it's advisable to use spring flowering bulbs that flower very early. It would be even before you would be mowing the lawn anyway.
Mhm.
And so what they do is they get you out here in the mid-Atlantic. They'll start blooming in, sometime in January, and they'll bloom throughout January, February, March. That's not a time when you're busy with your lawn anyway.
Mhm.
So it's just adding this extra layer. But actually, what is very important to me, I've also spent a lot of time studying native plants, is that it's a very important early season pollen and nectar source for bees.
Mhm. True, true. There's not a lot
And
blooming then.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's very little blooming then. And that's when, honeybees, the stores in their hives are at their lowest. The queen starts laying eggs early, and, they need pollen and nectar right away. When solitary bees like bumblebees wake up, they don't have the energy to fly far to forage. And they need these food sources. Successful nesting depends on it. So now we can take our big lawn that really isn't very interesting for any kind of wildlife
Mm-mm.
and and make this early spring smorgasbord of pollen and nectar for these important insects.
Yeah, I love that idea, and, for me, I'm very intrigued by it, and I think here using the term bulb lawn, and it sounds sort of funny. I definitely like the more sophisticated words for it, but bulb lawn.
That's
We're
okay.
bombarded in the West with, we have severe drought, and
Yes.
we are being limited on, water usage, and everyone's encouraged to convert and get rid of their grass. And most people are converting to natives, and which is great. But a lot of times people plant, natives, and they're small and they die because the drainage is bad. And so I always encourage
Hmm.
people to do, Mediterranean. So it's low water use, but you have uniqueness and variety throughout the year.
Yeah.
But I really like this idea of just go if you want something low and very easy maintenance, and then doing the succession of flowers, and then just sort of have it mowed down for a bit. You'll probably have it where it dies down a bit, but I love this
Hmm.
idea. And what I'm thinking is you could even just dig holes in your lawn and plant them. So how do you go about what is the first step you tell people to do if they're trying to maybe convert a lawn or just put them in their lawn?
Okay, those are great questions. I'm going to start by saying that, where we live, we have ample water. We're
Yeah.
very, very fortunate. Um, and this kind of method, this bulb lawn, this is not for somebody who really loves their turf,
Mhm.
who use a lot of chemicals and insecticides, herbicides, all kind of that kind of thing, and that has regular irrigation. Bulbs are from the Mediterranean, the bulbs that I'm talking about that we're going to be
Mhm.
using. And so they do not like to be wet. They will rot and they will
Mhm.
die. So this is, my husband Dan and I, we don't care about our turf that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it looks a little bit messy and it's honestly quite a short time, we're okay with that.
I'm guessing people who
So
are listening to this, they probably don't have very nice grass because they've heard me knock grass before, and I have a feeling they're probably not the people listen to this.
all right. Well, so anyway, last Monday we built one here at home.
Okay.
And so the first thing we did is we took a hose and we laid out the area. You could do it with spray paint too.
Mhm.
And then we put it in our front lawn because that's a very low traffic area for us because we're mostly in the backyard. So that's always something to think about. It's not where your dog is running or your kids are going to be running through. And then we also left about a 2-foot border around all of the other borders that surround the garden so that, excuse me, we can always get in and do maintenance in those other parts of the garden.
Okay. Yeah.
and it also makes kind of a nice grassy frame.
Mhm.
And then we use a bulb auger. Um, if I had to dig, 700 holes, I would die. So I don't. We use actually a power planter, but it's a bulb auger. And so what you do is, and we use quite a long one. It's probably about 3 feet, and
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
you put it onto your cordless drill,
Uh-huh.
and then with carefully and holding it with both hands, you just can drill down into the soil. You take an average size of your bulbs. I think we were planting them about 3 inches deep. My 3 to 4 inches deep. My largest bulbs were about an inch, an inch to 2 inches. And then you dig these holes, and we always do it together. So one person that's standing with the very tall auger isn't hurting their back by
Yeah.
crouching over.
Mhm.
And then one person is on their knees. The holes are dug. Mash all the bulbs together in a big trug, and then plant them in, put the soil back in, and just keep kneeling and crawling along. And we switch when somebody gets tired and wants to do it the other way around. And actually, we were able to put in about 1,500 bulbs, and let me guess, 8, 9, 10, 11, in about 4 hours.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, you know what? People are very busy, and nobody wants to spend weeks doing a
Mhm.
project or even your whole weekend.
Yeah.
But if you kind of get things ready and you're ready to roll,
Mhm.
it goes quick with an auger.
Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack because I have questions that I'm sure people are asking.
You go, yeah, please do.
So, I know people are gonna say, "Well, I have incredibly heavy, dense soil."
Yes,
But
so
with
do
an
we.
okay, see, with an auger, I mean, you're using a power tool, it's gonna be able to get through. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Yes, that's why I use an auger. We have a lot of clay in our soil
okay.
here,
Yeah.
and digging them one by one it would not be possible. I'd get carpal tunnel. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
don't do it.
2, I would imagine you want to wait if you got heavy rains, you don't wanna do it when it's a sopping wet mess, probably when it's
Correct.
slightly moist to dry because that's where the auger's gonna work better. You
You're
s
absolutely right. You never want to do any kind of gardening when the
Mhm.
soil is wet, wet, wet.
Yes.
We had it perfectly a few days before that. We had a good soaking rain. So that definitely helped. If you don't have that rain, maybe
Mhm.
put the sprinkler on for a while to loosen that soil up a little bit. But yeah, you don't want to do it when it's
Yeah.
raining.
And you said you mashed bulbs up, but you went 3 feet, and then you briefly
Three
mentioned
inches.
3 inches. Okay, the auger was okay, so you went down 3 inches. I was gonna say 3 feet, that is incredibly okay, so 3
No, no.
yes, 3 inches. I was like, "Okay, I gotta clarify that." Um,
Yes,
3
good. It's
inches.
still a good question
Yes.
because so bulbs, as the rule of thumb, is you plant them 3 times as deep as they are tall. So my biggest bulb was a small dwarf daffodil, tete or tete, whichever way you want to call it. Anyway, that they're about an inch or so tall. So we drilled holes that were around 3 to 4 inches deep, and although I threw all the bulbs in the tub and I put a few bulbs in each hole,
Okay.
it's okay because they're gonna bloom at different times,
Mhm.
so they're not gonna crowd each other out.
Okay, I like that. Okay, and then the last question, because I know people are probably asking, you hear about adding bone meal or fertilizer. Did you do
Uh-huh.
anything? Did you put anything in the bottom of the hole, and did you add
I did.
anything? Okay.
I did. And you know what? If I hadn't, I think they would probably come up just fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, if I'm gonna spend that kinda like, you're spending money to do this, and
Mhm.
not to mention your energy,
Yeah.
I like some insurance, and I wanna make sure my plants are happy. And so, it doesn't take very much. We bought, an organic, bulb fertilizer, and I put maybe a teaspoon in the hole, and you want to put it down at the bottom of the hole and put the bulbs on top, because otherwise that phosphorus will take too long to get down to them.
Mhm.
To put it down by their roots, it's readily available to them, and your bulbs aren't sitting there being dormant. They're actually, right now, they're out in my front yard putting out roots and getting themselves settled in for the winter.
Yeah, so there's active growth going on.
Yep.
And then so you covered the holes back up, and now did you water them in right away? I never water my bulbs in right away.
I did because of the way it works with the auger and, filling the holes,
Yeah.
and you're going pretty fast and everything. I watered them in for two reasons. One, wanted to make sure that the soil is snug
Yeah.
around the bulbs.
Mhm.
But number two, I wanted to see if there were any depressions or any holes that didn't get filled up all the way.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
there were.
Yeah.
Because you're going fast. So
Yeah.
once we could see that, I had saved some soil from, my annual pots, spread that soil back out. Your lawn, your turf is torn up a little bit. So we also just took a little bit of grass seed. This is a good time to grow grass anyway in the Mid-Atlantic. Threw a little grass seed over it, and then watered it in again to make sure everything was set. And then that's the last time we'll water.
Okay, and then the winter rains will do
Yep.
their thing. So you have an existing lawn, and so you were just doing it, and then there's still lawn
Yep.
around there. What I would have to, and I don't know, do you guys have irrigation?
No, we don't. And we
Okay.
put the holes very close together.
Okay.
Very close
Okay.
together, as close as we can, because you want it. You know why bulbs always look good in Holland? It's because
Yes.
they use them en masse.
Got it. Okay. So people, if they're
So they're
out
like-
here, we have lawn irrigation, we have irrigation. Just don't drill into your lawn irrigation.
No, and anytime you're drilling, really, we shouldn't, nothing, no power
Yeah.
line should be, 3
Oh,
inches
no,
deep.
exactly.
But it's always a good idea to check.
Yes, exactly.
And it doesn't cost anything for them to come out and mark it for you.
Okay. Yeah. So, but 3 inches, that's good. If anything's 3
Yeah.
inches, then there's a lot of problems going on, and you've got
Right.
bigger problems. So, what is the list of bulbs that you planted?
Okay, well, I've got a list here because it's because I don't want to forget anybody. Crocus, of course.
Mhm.
Oh, and you know what? You know how crocus open in the daytime and they close at night?
Mm.
Sometimes bees sleep in them.
Aw.
Isn't that the sweetest thing?
That's
I have
so
seen them.
cute.
Go
Aw.
out and look early in the morning when they're waking up.
Aw.
So they have a little crocus bed. So anyway, we put in crocus. Do you want me to do Latin or common names?
Do Latin names. Do Latin
Okay.
names. Yeah.
Iris reticulata, they do not flower for a very long time. I agree, but when they do, it's like fireworks. I just love them. I put in Tulipa sylvestris, the small yellow woodland tulip, dwarf narcissus, Chenodoxa, Gloria of the Snow, Scilla sibirica, muscari,
Mhm.
galanthus, iranthes, fritillaria, anemones. You can use, I didn't put these in, but you could use short ornamental onions, the alliums, and pushkinia, the striped squill.
Okay. So in
So
these
it's all real early stuff.
So that's early stuff. So,
Mhm.
and then you're going to let the foliage die. Now, what if people are like, well, my lawn's getting too tall? It's so fine. You're just going to mow it all at the same time once the foliage of these bulbs has died down. Is that correct?
Exactly. And
Okay.
to make it look like a little neater for our neighbors, we will mow the 2 feet that we've left in, all around the area that we've planted. So you can kind of say like, hey, there's something going on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not
And
like we
everybody in
forgot.
our neighborhood walks, so they all really love it anyway. Yep, that grass is going to be a little bit longer, but that's not going to hurt your grass. When most of the things have died back, you just go ahead and mow that like regular, and in a couple of weeks, you won't be able to tell anything was there.
Yep. Yep. And then some of those are going to naturalize. Not all of them, but a decent
Yeah,
amount
they will.
naturalize.
They
Okay.
all should.
They all should. Okay. So yeah, if
Yep.
people are wanting to, look for they'll say, or if you do research, it'll say they naturalize, and that way. So that's it. I mean, unless you wanted to fill it, make it go faster, you really don't need to do anything else. In a few years, that whole area is going to, because they'll push up through the existing grass. So as they naturalize, it's not like, this isn't, if people are worried they have their grass, they're going to come right back up. And you get summer rains.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay.
It
Okay.
gets real hot and dry here in latter parts of July and August. It's very hot, humid, and dry.
Okay. So these bulbs could handle, when they're dormant, they handle summer irrigation, summer rain. So it's not like the South African bulbs that if they get any
No.
rain when they're, yeah. So, because people are
No, we
gonna,
never get inundated with enough rain that it's a problem
mhm,
here. Certainly in every garden, there could be little places where, depending on the topography, water could stand. You never want to plant any bulbs where water would pool or
mhm,
stand.
yeah. And, some bulbs may rot out. And, you were, in your notes, you were saying squirrels and pests like,
Oh, the dreaded squirrels.
and are you talking
Right
ground
now,
squirrels?
I really have it in for squirrels and voles.
Oh yeah, gophers are
Mm.
my thing. Gophers and I
Oh,
have some issues.
yes. So, these all of the bulbs I talked about here, I guess, except for crocus and tulips, rodents don't like.
Mhm. Okay.
So that's helpful.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is when you hide stuff like, when tulips and crocus are part of the mix in a whole bunch of other stuff, mostly, animals won't go in and go after those few. The scent of the daffodils will throw them off. So a lot of people around here have deer pressure, so it's not really a big problem, like planting tulips out in your yard might be. So that's one thing. Squirrels love disturbed ground. I don't know. They just know you've planted something you're really excited about and they got to dig it up. Um, so, there are things you can buy, like some natural deterrents. They're, I think, mostly castor oil, so it's natural. It would not hurt your children or your animals or your pets or birds or anything else. You can put that over them. They don't really like the smell. Planting them a little bit deeper helps because they don't usually dig that down that far. And again, just, most of these bulbs, except for two, are really things that they don't care for.
Mm.
And so we got lucky as humans that they don't like those things.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of people wouldn't have them because there's a lot of squirrels out there that are,
Yeah.
yeah, problematic. Um,
Hmm.
so are you going to, so you said these are bulbs that are blooming fairly early for you. Are you going to
Yep.
continue the theme with summer blooming bulbs or,
In my lawn,
yes.
no. I don't think that's, again, you pay the mortgage. People can do whatever they want in their yards. I don't. I wouldn't do that, and the reason is just they. The summer bulbs that we're thinking about would be like bigger things, like even,
Mhm.
lilies and dahlias and alliums and things like that. They're very big. You wouldn't
Mhm.
be able to mow the lawn for months.
Yes. Okay.
Lilies start coming up. They have kind of a long growing period before they
Mhm.
flower. So it would be months that you couldn't mow, and that I think would be very untidy for most
Okay.
people.
Yeah, so if people are trying to transition out of a lawn completely and just want to do bulb gardening, they could do it where there's a succession. But if you wanted to have just early spring bulbs and still have that lawn look, then yeah, it's best not, because they are actually. I mean, think of dahlias are fairly large, lilies are big plants,
Yeah.
and in gladiolas. And yeah, it is true that most spring bulbs, some of them are tiny, tiny,
Yeah.
and they stay nice and compact. So I guess it depends on how you want to. If I'm thinking of people who want to get rid of their lawn, maybe here in California, and want to do.
Yeah.
But even then, I know people back east dig up their dahlias, and I even find that I need to dig them up if I really want to save them because they do rot. So even though we don't need to dig them up for cold, there's just certain ones that they tend to rot more.
Right.
So,
And I'm not really, I don't really want to promote this as oh, I'm missing the word. I don't think this should be in place of a lawn. I think
mhm.
this is with a lawn, because even if you did plant these bulbs, you'd have flowers for a couple of months, but you'd have 10 months with nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's okay because we're being forced
Yeah, I
not
don't
to
think
have
it's a lawn
lawns.
replacement. I think it's a lawn enhancement.
Yeah. So what people could do instead is maybe do like a ground cover or something. So really is it's like we have a Lipia is a lawn substitute.
Hmm.
And so it's a low growing ground cover. So I could see how it could work with that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yep.
but it is really frowned upon to have lawns here in California. So I'm just saying that
Yeah, I
it's
know, I know.
it's
You guys, it's
yeah,
just
it's
the
getting
weather is insane.
yeah, it's getting to the point where brown for I think San Jose even had a slogan like brown is the new green, which I had a big
Yeah.
problem with because I'm like, okay, there's a lot more than just either you have lawn or you have nothing. It's like, come on,
Right,
come up with a better slogan than that. But um or if people even just had like light bark ground cover and it would come up
right.
and then that died down and they just had bark, even though I don't agree with that
Yeah,
either. But I'm just giving people options. But I see where you're coming from is this just enhances your lawn. And it, like you said, for the early season pollinators, it's giving them something and it's beautiful to see it. And then you still
exactly. And I
have
think
your
we
lawn.
really, I was just gonna say, I just think it's important that we're really thinking about the pollinators
Mm-hmm.
whenever we can. Lawns get a bad rap, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. But one thing we just have to face up to is in this country we have a lot of space. In Europe, most gardens are just a fraction of the size of ours, and so you know we do have a lot of lawn, and we need some lawn for our pets and our children,
Mm-hmm.
our grandchildren to play and for ourselves. But if we can enhance that and make it valuable for our pollinators, then that's a terrific thing. And it's also
Mm-hmm.
beautiful for us. And I feel like it makes spring feel like it's coming early because they're going to coax you out of the house every day starting months before it's warm out.
Yeah, it's amazing how early some of these bulbs do bloom.
Hmm.
And as soon as you see them, you're like, "Wow, it's spring. Okay, it's spring."
I know. It's so exciting in the springtime. I act like I've never had a spring before, but every spring I just get wild.
I know.
Like, I can't believe this is flowering. And every new bloom in the spring is so precious. And, you can even count as 10 things blooming. And then, all of a sudden it'll explode and you can't keep up anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think the first flowers of spring just sort of are like so refreshing, like the new year is starting and the sun's coming out and days are going to get longer, and it's just, I don't know, it's very affirming and fun for me.
Mhm. No, I agree. I think it's still magical. It doesn't matter how many years you garden. I still say
Right.
my first tomato seedling,
Yes.
I'm still shocked and wowed by it no matter
Me
what. I'm just
too.
still like, "Wow. Wow." And then mid-season, you're like, "Okay, enough. Enough." But
I know, I know, I know. What tomato dish can I make
yeah,
today?
exactly. So I have a feeling I know the answer, but a lot of people, you gave a list of bulbs, and some of them people are probably like, okay. But when a lot of people who are just going to a nursery, the bulb selection is sometimes limited with just the quote, the
Yep.
standard bulbs. And,
Yep.
online is probably a good place. So I'm guessing I know the
Yep.
answer, but where do you get your bulbs and where do you suggest people buy bulbs for just a variety?
Okay, well, that's a great question. Now, I'm representing like hundreds of Dutch bulb exporters, and
Okay.
so I never name one place.
Oh, okay.
Uh, because I work for all of them and I cherish
Okay.
all of them, so I buy my bulbs from all of them. First and foremost, I always think if you can go to your local garden center. Local garden centers are just a treasure in a community, and let them know you're interested in bulbs and you're looking for that selection, and they'll get more for you. And there's absolutely no short of wonderful places online. I can't come up with a bad place online to buy bulbs. Not
Okay.
that I could think of right now, but they have great choice. And remember, like I use this big huge mix, but a friend of mine kind of did the same thing over all over her lawn, but she only used crocus.
That would be
And that's
beautiful.
gonna be charming.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like Winterthur Gardens, they only use blue bulbs.
Mm.
Or, you can just let your imagination run wild. You could go with a color combination, you could go with just one variety, you
Mhm.
could go with a mix you happen to like or that's available for you. But
Okay.
your memory, your Okay, so you just be creative and think about what you love. If you love purple and you love crocus, man, just do a bunch of crocus. It would be insane.
Yeah, that would be it'd be a showstopper. Um,
Yeah.
and so you just planted yours. What is the time frame? Because it's a pretty big window of when you could
Uh-huh.
plant. But when would you say is optimal? And when would you say is too late?
Well, it depends on where you live, of
Mhm.
course.
Mhm.
So it's nice to do it while there's still some warmth in the ground. And when you're, a few weeks, maybe a month away from when your ground is really going to be frozen. If your ground is frozen, it's too late.
Okay. Okay.
So, because, we just talked about they are going to send out roots. They're going to start to get established. And if the soil is completely frozen, that's a problem. So, in the northern tier where I'm from in Minnesota, we would be planting bulbs in September and probably till now in October or early October. Getting a little warmer, we're going into October, November. We could certainly plant here in the mid Atlantic in November.
Hmm.
And then some places farther south than that, they can plant right through to December.
Yeah.
And sometimes my husband doesn't listen to the rules or the weather, and he plants in December too.
Okay. Yeah, we don't get frozen ground here. So,
I know.
but that could be misleading because sometimes they get out of whack. If someone has
Right.
bulbs and they go and plant them in February, they pop out and they don't bloom. And I just tell them if it is a naturalizing bulb, you probably won't get anything, but leave it in the ground and it'll adjust
Yep.
itself for
Exactly.
it. So sometimes even if it's like, well, we don't get frozen ground, we could plant, it doesn't mean it's going to be happy.
No, no, no. I would say if you had to pick, I would say, mid-September, mid-October to mid-November, late
Mhm.
November. I think that's a really good period for fall planting.
Mhm. Yeah, and then once again, if the ground is really wet, you just don't want to be planting anyways,
Just don't you
'cause
don't wanna do anything, you're gonna ruin your soil structure,
Mhm.
so don't do any gardening if the soil is sopping wet.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's your day off.
yeah.
That's the day you cannot weed, you cannot garden, you have to go do something else.
You go order seeds and bulbs online.
Yes,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Because what's better than that?
Yes, exactly. You didn't plant any hyacinths. Um,
I'm not no, I didn't because they're they're really kinda big and beefy,
okay, yeah, so they are
and so they take a long
mhm.
time to die
Okay.
back.
I was wondering about that. They do have very thick foliage. It's
Yeah,
almost succulent like. So I was wondering if
right.
that was it. Okay. Yeah.
They're very pretty.
Mhm.
Obviously, they have a great fragrance. So that would be a fun one to like maybe force in pots
Mhm.
and put in other places in the garden that you frequent in early spring so you can smell them, like around your outdoor seating area
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
something like that, where you'll get the fragrance. I think they're just too beefy in this and they would take way too long to die back.
Okay. Yeah, I figured that was the reason because I'm like picturing
Yep.
them along with it. I'm like, yeah, it would be, and you want to mow the lawn, and then of course the foliage when it died down, and they fairly naturalize a bit. It's hit
Yeah,
and
it
miss.
depends a little bit on your
Mhm.
place, but
Mhm.
in ideal conditions, they should come back.
Yeah. Um, we have a little bit more time. So you mentioned forcing and in pots. So can you touch
Mhm.
upon if say someone didn't have a lawn and they wanted to grow these bulbs, what would you say would be the steps for planting in a pot? Say
Okay.
a mix of spring bulbs.
Oh, okay. Well, there's some really fun things to do. Now, again, we have a giant, huge country, and so it's going to be a little different depending on where you live. But one fun thing we talk about on our website, and our website is flowerbulbs.com.
Okay.
That's just education and inspiration. We don't sell anything there. We just want to get you excited
Mm.
about it. Go there and look up something called lasagna planting.
Hmm.
And this is so fun. It's fun to do with kids. So you have a big container and you plant all these bulbs at different levels because of course the bigger bulbs will be lower in the ground, tiny bulbs up by the top. So you could start with your big pot, put in some soil, then put in a layer of tulips, put in another layer of soil, put in your daffodils, another layer of soil, and that could be your grape hyacinths, another layer of soil, and that could be your crocus. And so in this one pot that is on your balcony or wherever you can see it, is going to flower for you in succession for quite a long time.
I,
It's like having a mini bulb lawn in your pot.
I love that idea. And that would be so much fun with kids because, it's like,
Yes.
hey, just layering it. Now put the soil in and now plant
Yeah.
these. Yeah.
Little hands are
Hmm.
very good for that. And also, kids really marvel at bulbs because they grow fast once they come up.
Yes.
And another super fun thing you should do with your kids this fall is get an amaryllis bulb because
Mm.
once they start to grow, they can grow an inch or more a day. And for kids, that is awesome. They can measure them and keep track. It's very cool.
Speaking of amaryllis, like we're used to seeing them around the holidays times forced.
Uh huh.
Their natural bloom time is end of summer once you put them
Right.
in the ground. So I think it's always fun when people are like, "Oh my gosh, I have this bulb blooming in my lawn." It's like, well, that's its natural time, really. They're forced in around the holiday times.
Exactly, exactly. We have a few perennial amaryllis in our gravel garden that, I don't know if they love it here, but they kind of do it for us. We're not really where they're supposed to grow, but yeah, I mean, amaryllis are just fun. But yeah, so depending on where you are, um, you can do that. So if you're like way in the northern tier, your pots could freeze and break. So get those into the garage for the winter time, in some place where they're really protected. So, your pots don't break open. Terracotta pots will break faster than glazed pots. So if you're in some place like, Minnesota, the very northern tier, you've got to protect those pots.
Mm.
Here in this tier, kind of the middle tier, I pot all kinds of things up, and then I've got kind of like a big mesh thing that I use to sieve soil, from the
Mhm.
compost.
Yeah.
I just lay that on top of the pots so the squirrels can't get in there and dig them up.
Okay.
Um,
That's
and
a good
then I
idea.
just leave them outside and I wait until they start to grow a little bit and those first leaves are popping up. And then I take them and I put them around the garden. I bring some over to my mother-in-law's house and our aunties. And, they just think, that's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice thing about bulbs is they'll tell you when they're ready to be
Yeah,
they're coming out and it's time. So even our South African bulbs that are get absolutely no summer irrigation at all just start popping up. And then we go,
right.
okay, we move them out for sun because if you don't move them out for sun, they're going to get really stretched out and leggy and not bloom well.
Yeah.
And then we start
That's so
watering them.
important that you said that because I didn't. So yeah, they will need some sun when they start to grow. Not windows. Gosh, what do you call them? The grates around your basement windows. Window wells.
Oh, okay. We don't have,
They also
yeah.
provide great protection.
Okay. We actually have a basement, but our house is from like the 1930s, and it's very rare in California. There's not basements. So I don't think
Uh-huh.
most people know that.
No, that won't work.
Okay. So yeah, just some sunlight because they will be like all
Yeah,
stretchy.
and right, and feel free to just layer up those bulbs. Maybe in
Mhm.
a smaller pot you have 3 layers. Maybe in a great big pot you have 5. Go over to our flowerbulbs.com, look for some recipes and stuff, and look up lasagna planting, and it's a blast. And a lot of people like maybe they have a balcony, and
Mhm.
you can still grow stuff like that on the balcony. You can enjoy them wherever they are, and remember too, with the holidays coming up. I don't think there's any better gift you can give somebody. We're going to go do some guerrilla planting and surprise some family members when the bulbs come up in the spring.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a fun thing to do with
Yes.
kids. Sneak over, go do some guerrilla gardening.
Then just plant them. Be like, I don't know where that came from.
I don't know where
Yeah.
those came from,
Yeah.
Grandma.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. But I will say that I have cats and I'm paranoid about lilies. I will say
Okay,
that.
yeah, right.
Um,
And you know what? And I hear you. I have had cats all my life. I've also been in love with lilies all my life. I
mhm.
have luckily never had a cat that even tried to bite a lily.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to tell people that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we love our pets so much, and we want to keep them safe. Like I said, I've never had a cat interested, but
Okay.
far be it to me to say that it's safe.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
I think my cats would love to just be like, she's had it too good. Let's get her an expensive vet bill. Let's go ahead.
I know
So
cats can be very mischievous.
yeah, if that's a nice way of putting it. I have other words. No, just kidding.
I know.
But yeah,
That's what I'm calling my voles
there
right
you
now.
go. Oh, there you go. No, those I could just call them. And yeah. So you for your voles, do you plant the bulbs in like the hardwire cloth cages? Would you do something like that?
I wouldn't do something like that for such a big area.
Yeah.
10 square yards or something.
Mhm.
I certainly wouldn't do anything that big. Um, I don't have as much trouble with the voles digging up bulbs. I have more problem with the voles eating around the base of woody plants and
Oh,
killing them.
okay. Okay. Got it. I don't
Yeah.
yeah, we have gophers and they just do undermine everything.
Yeah. So,
So
and one thing that people do if that's a problem is they put the bulbs in and put gravel on top before they put the soil back on. That
mm,
can help deter them. Some of the things we talked about, like the castor oil, the natural repellents work.
mhm.
Um, Cleaning up after you do it so they don't smell the bulbs. I mean, that kind of helps. Chicken wire is another one. I see them use this, especially if you have kind of a big area. One thing you could do, and I could have done this out front, I think I was too lazy. Just lay down chicken wire over the area that you planted and pin it down.
Okay.
That's going to keep them from going in from the top anyway, and that will help. And if you have smaller amount of bulbs, you can, make a little, like a little, I don't know, little bag with chicken
Mhm.
wire and put them in. That will
Yeah.
keep them out. There's little cages you can buy at like the gardening supply stores. Um,
Yeah, so if you're just doing a little bit and you're like or
yeah,
high end bulb, say an amaryllis or something, you don't want
right.
something messing with it, then you could buy those cages or make them. But for a big area, you're just maybe just assume some loss, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. I heard somebody say once, for every bulb I want, I plant three, one for me and two for the
Oh
animals.
gosh.
I've never had that bad of luck,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I was going to
you know
say
what
I
I
don't
mean.
know if that's yeah. Maybe one and one. There we go.
Yeah, everything we just planted, if they eat a couple, that's okay. There's still enough to share.
Yes. Um, I do want to ask, I don't want to keep you, and I'm already thinking, I'm like, oh, I need to have you back because we need to talk about forcing bulbs for the holidays.
Okay.
But that could be a whole different.
Oh, I have a really good friend that is very good at that
Oh,
subject.
really? Okay. Well, then maybe
Yeah.
both of you are just that, and them could be on, and then,
Yeah, no, I think you should just have David. He's awesome. My husband is a horticulturist at Chanticleer Gardens in Wayne, PA. It's one of the,
oh, yeah.
oh, do you know it?
Chanticleer Gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's a lovely, lovely place. David works there. He's done some talks for me on bulbs too. He does a lot with forcing. He does more with forcing than I do.
Okay. Well, yeah,
I think
that'd be
he would
great.
be a real pro for you.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get that organized. But
Okay.
one thing
Yeah, I'll do anything I can to help.
okay, one thing I do want to ask, and I don't know, and this is like a total personal, like selfish question, is hyacinth bulbs. Do they make you itch?
Not me. No,
Okay. Have you heard that before though?
I haven't.
No. Interesting. Because I've always thought at
But
first
do they make you itch?
they make me itch. Yes. And I thought for a bit maybe there was sulfur, but then I realized I work with sulfur a decent amount and I'm not allergic to sulfur.
Right.
Hyacinth bulbs make me itch. And
I
so,
haven't heard that, but
hmm.
I know that people can be allergic to them. I know that some people the smell drives them
Oh,
crazy,
I
but
love the smell.
I hadn't heard of itching. That one's new for me.
Yeah, just the hyacinth bulbs. Okay, I was just wondering. I
It's
wasn't
just got
sure
to
if
be some sap or something that's
something.
affecting your
Yeah.
skin.
Yeah, I just wondered if you work with these bulb exporters. I thought maybe there's something that's just put on hyacinth bulbs, but I don't think so.
No,
Yeah, so
no,
okay.
nothing that I know of.
Yeah, it's just something about them. I mean, I absolutely love them. I love the fragrance And
Right.
it's like when I cut them, I'm not allergic to them at all. It's just some contact dermatitis of some sort.
Oh,
So
is that
yeah,
crazy?
yeah, it's just, who knows? There's people who are
Yeah.
allergic to certain things. It's just no rhyme or reason. And I just was wondering if that's something since, it's more common, but I guess not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Not
So,
that I know of.
okay. Yeah. That was it. That was just my selfish question of the
That's okay.
podcast. So this is where, so you mentioned gardenbulbs.com.
Flowerbulbs.com.
Flowerbulbs.com. And that is just people could go get ideas, and you talk about
Yep.
the lasagna bulb planting and
Yeah, there's so many articles and recipes and different things people can look up and learn about, what more one species, in particular. It's just a lot of fun information for everybody out there. Like I said, I represent all the bulb exporters, so we don't sell anything on our
got it.
website.
Okay.
We just want to make people happy. On our Facebook and Instagram accounts, we do giveaways and share fun things like that. And if your listeners ever had a question and they asked it on social media, more than likely it would be me that answered.
Okay. So what's the social media? What are some of your sites?
Flowerbulbs.com,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and then Instagram is flowerbulbs.dot spelled out com.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yes. Okay, so you're on Facebook and Instagram, and that's sort of
Yep.
where you do your majority of
Yeah,
of answering.
so we're
Okay.
doing now we're doing some giveaways and stuff, and all of the influence. We work with a lot of influencers, amazing people, and they're always doing like fun stuff and showing people how to. There'll be a how-to video. Garden Gate Magazine and Horticulture came and
Mhm.
filmed us planting the bulb lawn,
Oh,
so
fun.
that's going to be on YouTube in a week. So it's just like fun informational things. We're doing a lot with cut flower lilies right now for Halloween and Thanksgiving and stuff. It's just fun, pretty stuff.
People like that. I mean, one, it's
I
inspiration.
know. I'm getting a little tired of the political ads, and I just want some fun, pretty stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, you just want to escape from that, and you want to see something pretty. And even if sometimes
Right.
you're like, okay, this isn't attainable for me, but you still could take a little bit of that and
Absolutely.
recreate it in no matter what size place you live
Yes.
in. There's always a spot for a pot somewhere.
I know. You don't have to have 5,000 crocus.
No.
50 look really great.
Yes. Two look great.
Two. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, especially saffron. Then you got your own saffron, maybe a few strands of
know.
it. So
Those are
yeah.
a little fussy to grow, though. I don't like to recommend them.
Oh, yeah, I had a saffron farmer on. They're actually only about an hour north of me, but
Oh, cool.
yeah, so we can grow saffron here, but I mean, most crocus don't last very long, and then if you really want
know.
saffron, you need a lot. So their
I
farm
know.
is morphed into something else. They still do the crocus, but they definitely
Got it.
morphed it to something else. So yeah.
Hey, when can we look for this?
Well, since it is peak bulb
No, you don't
planting
have to
time.
tell me today. You can just send
Yes.
me an email whenever
Yes.
you want to put it up.
Yeah. But I definitely want
We'd love to share it.
Yeah, I'm getting it out sooner than later just because right now is like you said, it's a great time to plant bulbs. We're smack dab in the middle of, for most people, I think, in all the zones. And I always tell people, I'm coming at it from zone 9. I don't know what your zone is in Delaware.
This is a nice middle point.
Yes. So always check your zones, the USDA. If you just Google USDA, it'll tell you your zones. But and that's why I always tell is like, gardening it's a big country and it's so many different climates. But there's usually there's somewhere a happy middle ground of where most people are, things overlap.
Yeah.
And bulbs are
Right.
one of those nice things. It's where it's pretty much fall for, planting for spring bulbs. Pretty much anywhere is
Right.
going to be around this time. So yeah, I'll let you
Awesome.
know.
Can I also ask you like something about your reach or how many times things are usually downloaded? I have to keep track.
Oh yeah, I'll send an email on that too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll
Perfect.
send- Actually,
And
I
then
don't
please
even
say
know.
hello to Andrew next week. I think
Yes.
that's hilarious.
Yes. He was
I
on.
was at a party at his house on Friday.
Are you serious? All you
Yeah.
East Coast people, your gardens are
Oh,
so serious and so like here
we are so
it's
incestuous.
yeah.
I always tell people, Marlene, it's like if there's 6 degrees of separation here in the Brandywine Valley, it's three. And
Oh.
if you're in horticulture, it's one.
Oh my gosh. I need to get back there. I need to just do a whole like jaunt to all these different places back east. I've been to Europe and seen there more than I've been back east, but it's a gold mine of gardens.
It
So
is. And I think we must innately know how lucky we are because there's, 50 botanic gardens within 50 miles of here. And instead of competition, everybody collaborates, everybody volunteers, helps everybody else out. It's a wonderful place to work.
I'm on a board of trying to get a botanic garden in Sacramento. Believe it or not, the capital of California does not have a botanic garden. And
Ooh,
and you would think that it is like the most alien concept. It is like, what? What? What about
yeah.
a sports team? What? And it's like, come on.
Hey, do you know Nan Sturman?
No. No.
I'm going to introduce you. Nan has had a TV show. She's huge in gardening
Okay.
in California.
Oh, okay. Where's she based out of in California? Do you know?
Um, I can't remember right
Okay.
now. Southern California,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
San Diego area.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I grew up in San Diego. Ooh, that's nice gardening. Yeah. 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 No, that
If you are interested, I'll send you both an email and
okay.
introduce you. But she would be awesome to have on the show. And she, especially for your area, she it has much more expertise about your area than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone you know that you think would be
Oh,
a
I'm
great
not going
match?
to send you 100 people. They'll go crazy. If you ever get bored, call me and I'll line you
Okay.
up with somebody.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining me. And everyone, until next time, happy gardening.